The more Malmao tried to remain invisible, the more the palace pulled her into its spotlight, and now she was being summoned. Not by a servant, not by a consort, but by Jinshi himself, the man who never stopped smiling, the man whose beauty disarmed nobles and servants alike. And yet, behind those graceful words hid something unreadable. You seem to attract trouble, don't you? Since her arrival at the palace, trouble seemed to follow her. First, the attempted murder in the gardens, then the mysterious deaths in the kitchens. But Jinshi wasn't here to discuss those matters. She could sense it in the way he held himself, in the subtle shift in his posture. He was here to talk about something else entirely, something he considered important enough to summon her directly. His eyes, though, held amusement. No reproach, no anger. Just a hint of something else, something akin to curiosity. Namo straightened her back, hands neatly folded in front of her. In the quiet of the inner court, Jinshi sat calmly, offering her tea. Sat across from her not as a superior to a servant, but as if she were. Equal. Then Jinshi finally looked away, his gaze drifting to the ornate patterns on the table. When he spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. Have you ever killed anyone? So you have no affiliation with any particular sect or school of thought when it comes to medicine. Namo stared back at him, her expression unreadable. She didn't flinch, she didn't show a sign of fear. She simply held his gaze steadily. Finally, he lifted his head, his eyes meeting hers. Because in that one answer, Jinshi had seen her value, her dangerous potential, and decided to keep her close. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You're more useful than I thought, he said, and just like that, she was given another assignment. And always by her side was Namo, serving tea, tending to her meals, watching over her every need. While her other attendants bustled around, whispering amongst themselves, Namo kept to her post silently. She knew she was being watched, assessed. She knew Jinshi had placed her here not just as a servant, but as a spy. You would have failed already if I hadn't found you. But it seems you're doing well enough. Then she answered in a soft, even tone, I learned from a man who healed and sometimes had no choice but to kill. I needed someone with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. Someone who could handle the task discreetly, efficiently. She was young, barely older than Malmao, and her face was ashen, framed by thick black hair. Despite her delicate appearance, an entourage of 5 maids and 2 guards accompanied her. Not just to serve, but to spy, to uncover the secrets of the Emperor's own sister. She turned to Jinshi, a myriad of emotions swirling within her, but his eyes held hers, unwavering, intense. There was no mistaking the trust, the reliance, the absolute belief in her abilities. To find out what secrets Princess Ningning is hiding. It was clear who she was. The Emperor's younger sister, Princess Ningning. She accepted the tea with both hands, acknowledging the gesture, then slowly sipped it, waiting for him to speak. You've been busy? He said softly. Namo didn't respond. She didn't deny it because it was true. Tell me, Jinshi began, his voice like the chime of a silver bell. Where did you learn medicine? Suddenly, the door slid open and a figure stepped in. She turned, recognizing the familiar figure in the dim light. She met his gaze steadily. From my father. He was a traveling healer. And how long were you there, at the household? And when did you learn to recognize so many toxins? Malmo lowered her eyes slightly, contemplating the question. From books. From observing. Jinshi murmured, leaning back in his seat. I served as a handmaiden in a noble household before coming here, she replied quietly, her tone even. Jinshi's fingers tightened around the teacup, his thumb pressing against the porcelain. 3 years, she answered promptly. A beat of silence stretched between them. The question hung in the air, heavy and charged with meaning. Jinshi remained silent for a long moment. The only sound was the quiet tinkling of a nearby fountain. It wasn't a test anymore. She wasn't being observed. She was being used. 2 days later, a new consort arrived. Her sedan chair was carried by 8 men, all dressed in scarlet uniforms, their faces grim. She stayed mostly in her chambers, her health fragile, her spirits low. One evening, while the princess slept, Malmo sat by the window, her silhouette outlined by the soft lamplight filtering through the paper screen. You came, she said softly. He smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. Of course I did. You need someone to report to? No, you came to see if I would fail. He approached her, his step silent, and sat beside her on the window seat. She looked at him, surprised. Is that why you sent me here? Because you knew I would do well? I knew you would survive, he corrected her, his gaze fixed on the sleeping princess. And what task is that? She asked, leaning closer. He leaned in as well, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. The revelation hit her like a jolt of electricity. She straightened, her eyes wide with understanding. So this was the real reason for her presence.